Warren Macdonald back with you again for another episode of the Solution Revolution. I've got to tell you, this time I'm super psyched because I've got Jonathan Fields here with me. Welcome, Jonathan.
Great to be here.
Thank you. It's you've got to love the technology that we can connect in this way. I've got to say, the reason that we're here. Jonathan and I were both involved with a project called the Badass Project, and it kind of was the trigger for me to reach out to get Jonathan to share some of his thoughts here with us now. But part of my quick intro was that I first became aware of you, Jonathan, through Career Renegade, and I'm not sure if you can tell here, but
some little tags over there.
Yeah, we've got a few tags there. The interesting thing, I wasn't looking to kind of break out of any kind of career or to create a career. The reason I was attracted to the book was because to me it was all about growth and creating. And if there's one thing that I've become about, it's this process of creating, of not accepting the life that we're dealt out and creating something out of it. And that just reached out to me, and yeah. I really connected with it. So welcome, and maybe we should get you to kind of give us a quick snapshot on who Jonathan Fields is, and then we can kind of get into it from there.
Sure. I mean, I live in New York City, and I'm first and foremost a dad and a husband. You know, if you're going to look for anything outside of me that helps define what I'm about, that's it. Yeah. And beyond that, I'm a creator. I love to bring things to life in the world, and I love to figure out ways to help and inspire other people to bring things to life in the world. So, and that's taken many different forms. You know, a former big firm lawyer, SEC lawyer, ended up starting a couple of companies and small businesses and then selling them, written a couple of books, and done a couple of online ventures, paint, I write music. So it's sort of just there are a whole bunch of different creative outlets for the ability to just bring things that come into my head to life in the real world. And that just takes a whole bunch of different formats. And you know, I've been fortunate in that I've spent a lot of time figuring out how to get people to pay me to do that.
Yeah, that's always that's
right. Somehow I made a living doing it at the same time. You can't argue with that.
Yeah, it's where the rubber has to hit the road somewhere, and the way the checks have to come in.
Yeah, well, I mean, I live in New York City and I have a family to support, so I'm not at a point in my life where I'm going to just say, hey, you know, I'll live hand to mouth. But it's important to me to be able to do something that allows me to come alive and to serve a community, but at the same time, I need to earn a decent living to live well in the world and also be able to give well. Yeah.
So you touched on something there that I want to jump back to, because talking about earning a living, you mentioned that you're a former hedge fund lawyer, is that? Yeah. So, but because I just picked up uncertainty again. Uncertainty. I gotta say I can't really give us flashes the cover because I got it on the Kindle there. But I picked up Career Renegade again this morning, just kind of before the interview, and was reminded of that your story of basically hitting burnout.
Yeah.
As a lawyer, and maybe you can kind of recap that.
Yeah, and I wasn't even that far into my career, but what I started to realize is that I was working insane hours under huge amounts of pressure, and doing something that, on one level, I had no desire to. I had no interest in the carrot that was being dangled in front of me. So when you're in a large law firm, the carrot is partnership. Right. And I looked ahead, like 5, 6, 7 years, and I'm thinking I don't want to be there. Yeah. I'm looking at the people who are there, and I'm thinking that's not what I want my life to be like. Yeah. And meanwhile, you're working 80, 100 hours a week, all in the name of trying to make this. And at the same time, I ended up in the hospital after working a number of days. My immune system essentially shut down, perforated the intestine in my body, and developed a huge infection just in the middle of my body. So that's a bit of a wake-up call. And, I took a step back once I recovered from that. Started making a list of the things that I thought would be cool to do with my life if I could figure out how to earn a decent living doing them, and saved up a whole bunch of money because I knew most of the things on that list made very little money, and I'd have to figure out how to make a lot more money, and then made the leap.
The leap of faith. Do you look back now at that? Because one of the interesting questions that comes to me is I had to go through a major experience to kind of push me to kind of open that world up and get creative on what I wanted to do. So you went through that experience. What would have happened if you hadn't got pushed to the point where your health broke down? I mean, would we be having this conversation now? Or I suppose the bigger question is, do you feel that people have to kind of have hit that crisis point to change?
Yeah, I don't feel that. I'm pretty comfortable that I would have come to that same awakening relatively quickly.
Yeah.
The same thing that ended up shutting my body down was also making me emotionally miserable. And there were times where I would sit in my office with the door closed, just crying. And potentially even not knowing why, but I was just so utterly exhausted that I couldn't figure out which way was up. And I think at some point you sort of you need to create a little bit of time to pull back, to get enough clarity and be able to sort of look down into the experience of your life, almost like you're an observer, and say, okay, is this what I'm here to do? How happy am I really? And what am I leaving that I'm not doing that I really am interested in doing? That how can I serve in a way that helps the world, that allows me, lights a fire inside of me and allows me to live well. And I'm confident I would have come to that awakening, but I totally agree. I think a lot of people, the deeper into your career you get, the older you get, the further into your life cycle you get, the more responsibilities you have. If you have a family to support, mortgages, school tuitions, and you build all of that around a certain income level and a certain structure of work, it becomes, in the legal world we call it golden handcuffs. You feel like nobody's going to give you sympathy because you're making a serious income and you've got like power, choice, and prestige, but at the same time you're empty inside, and you would kill to unlock those handcuffs because it's killing you inside.
Right.
But so I think it's harder to do the further you get into life without some sort of major event that shakes you into the reality and also allows those around you to take a step back and say, well, I didn't realize he's in such a bad place that the work is actually doing this to him or to her, whoever it may be. But, part of what I was trying to do in Career Renegade, in fact, and a little bit in Uncertainty too, is, and a lot of the work that I do, and I'm sure the work that you do as well, is create that, create the precipitating event without having somebody to actually have to suffer the physical demise of it.
Yeah. It's part of the way that I've started to see it now, and I'm sharing this concept with people, is this idea that if we don't create some kind of crisis for ourselves, a crisis, the universe will create it for us, and so it's taking these preemptive, making these preemptive strikes, if you like. And people kind of get freaked out when I say, hey, create a crisis, but it can be something that makes you uncomfortable. It's the way I look at it. There was a line that, where did I see it? I might have seen it in Career Renegade or on the website, but actually I think it was somebody's testimonial for Uncertainty, but it made a reference to the line of you better get comfortable with being uncomfortable, which is something that, something I've kind of been saying for a long time.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is Career Renegade, the books that I write tend to be my quest to find pieces of the puzzle. Partly for myself and partly because then I like to share it. And like I said, it's one of the cool things about being an author is that you get to one of my signature strengths, as I've taken the various inventories, is I have a love of learning and curiosity. So that's one of the things that fills me up, that makes me come alive. So writing books is this really cool thing because it allows me to completely devote huge amount of energy to that, and then turn around and frame it and synthesize everything that I'm learning in a way which it illuminates in some way the human condition and hopefully connects with people. But you're right. I mean, our brains, and I wrote about this in Uncertainty, our brains are largely hardwired to experience having to make decisions or take actions in the face of uncertainty as pain, as unease, as discomfort. It's it's an age-old reaction. It triggers the amygdala, the fear center in our brain, to want to say, run. Which in prehistoric times was probably a really good thing because it kept us alive and it kept us in the group. These days, not so much. It will keep us alive in those life-threatening scenarios. But what about all those other scenarios all day long where you have opportunities that present themselves that require you to to go into that place where you don't know how it's going to end, but the potential opportunity and the gift on the other side of those, when you succeed, is so life affirming. And most people back away from that because they're unequipped to effectively handle living in an uncertain place.
Yeah. But as you pointed out, uncertainties is where the magic happens, or I paraphrased that uncertainties, that space where we get to step in and create something, if we can get out of that state of paralysis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about this. What's the only way to be absolutely certain of an outcome before you start? There are only two ways. One is if you've done it already, or if somebody else has done it already. Yeah. At which point you're no longer creating, you're no longer adding something new to the ecology of human experience. You're just replicating, you're duplicating what's been done before. So the question, why bother? Who cares at that point? So what? You made another widget that happens to be, just like the one that somebody else did, but you're selling it for 2 cents less. I don't know about you, I don't know about other people, but I'm not here to do that. Well, I know about you, you're not here to do that. None of us are here to sort of do that, but we get so scared into we get scared of being in that place where we don't know how it's going to end. And there is a small slice of humanity. What I found through the research is there very likely is a very small slice of individuals who do touch down, where their brains are wired in a way that allows them to experience that place with a bit more equanimity. And they can go to that place more regularly and create great art, great businesses, great experiences. And they don't suffer as much as the average person. But the average person does suffer. Because the brain, like I said, lights up and literally sends electrical and chemical signals to the body that make us uncomfortable. And the question, really is, if you're not one of those few people that touch down with some genetic orientation towards it, being more comfortable in that place, can you train it? Can you figure out ways to do it? Yeah. And indeed you can. There are many things that you can do with your environment, with the people around you, with your workflow, that will shift the psychology of the process. It'll never completely eliminate that, sort of sense that, this is new ground, but it can deliver enough baseline calm so that you feel comfortable taking action and consistently taking action. You know this, everybody knows this deep down. There's no magic to success in any field. It's consistent action over time. Yeah. But when you're terrified to take consistent action, it never happens.
Yeah. Do you think, so this is something that you've had to work on and learn?
Yeah, I mean, I've suffered my whole life. Yeah. I'm somebody who touched down with insatiable Jones to create everything. But I'm not somebody who is well equipped to be able to handle the anxiety and the psychology of that process.
Yeah, which is good to point out, because I think sometimes people make the mistake of, they see somebody out there, they see New York Times best-selling author and think that all of these magical pieces fell into place to make that happen. But kind of what I want to make clear is that, sure, there's pieces that can fall into place that can set us up to kind of not be, I'm sure if we were all born, if either of us was born in a small village in Africa, for example, in Uganda, things would be totally different. So there's pieces that fall into place, but I kind of wanted to make it clear that we can, it's up to us then to kind of equip ourselves and to start to kind of work on putting the pieces together in a way that makes us more successful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, one of the big awakenings for me is that, being okay in the space of uncertainty, where you have to go to do great things in the world, is a trainable thing. So for me, I wake up every morning, I roll out of bed with my eyes half closed. The first thing I do is I work out of a home office, and there's one corner of my office, which is my meditation area. And, nobody's up in the house yet. I wake up early. I sit on my cushion. And I do a mindfulness meditation every single morning. Yeah. And that is, and when I don't do it, I feel it. That is one of the central practices that I do to really be able to create on a high level consistently and not feel like I'm constantly on edge and constantly anxious and constantly suffering. And it's the amazing thing is, I've given presentations to global Fortune 100 companies about this. 20 years ago, if I had tried to do that, that would have been laughed out of the room.
Yeah.
But now, like I guided, a room full of 100 leaders from around the world, in one of the largest companies in the world through a guided mindfulness meditation.
Yeah.
And they were totally loving it and open to it. And the beautiful thing is there's now so much research, academic, peer-reviewed, published research behind practices like this that show that it works, very powerfully to reduce anxiety and stress and elevate mood, but also to unlock cognitive function, decision-making, creativity. Right. That it's a very easy conversation to have these days to convince people to at least try it. Yeah. And there's no, there are also a lot of these practices came out of sort of deep ideological backgrounds or, dogma or religion, but you don't need to buy into any of that to actually practice these things these days. You can, they're very stripped down, benign, non-ideological practice, just fundamental practices that are very straightforward and they make a huge difference.
So they shouldn't be confronting for somebody on the realm of worrying about being reprogrammed by some outside force. I think the thing that if anybody was going to be concerned about meditation, that they should be aware of in advance, it's the stuff that's going to come up from inside that if anything's going to freak you out.
No doubt. Once you create a little bit of stillness, the stuff that bubbles up is sometimes a little bit scary, but the big ideas and the solutions that come up when you're just sitting is mind-blowing. Like if you're trying to figure out a really tough business problem and you just can't get there, if you pull yourself completely away from the problem, you just create time for stillness in your day. It doesn't even have to be meditation. Go for a walk in the woods, completely remove yourself. And there's, again, great research on this, that your brain works in a way that the great solutions generally come when you actually remove yourself from the process of trying to find them. Yeah. And you create enough of a pause for them to just sort of effervesce from the ether of your brain.
Yeah. No, I'm glad to hear you say that, and kind of in a way I knew you were going to say that anyway, because I remember you talking about that on the Badass Project. But it's I kind of call it creating these quiet spaces. It's I'm sure you're in the same boat. I've never figured out any answer to any big problem sitting in front of a computer. It always happens when I'm out, and especially outside.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a couple blocks from me is just, I live along the Hudson River, and there's a preserve where it's just woods along the river, and there's a little dirt trail, and I just, in the afternoons when it's nicer out, that's where you'll find me. Yeah. And that's one of my best, it's funny because people would say, well, that's where I take a break from work. That's where my best work happens. But I'm not trying, and I'm just out there in the space. Yeah.
No, I'm the same. I'll be out skiing later this morning, and I always carry the iPhone along with me to record ideas. No, it's interesting because in a lot of ways I think part of the reason that I called this a solution revolution was because I want kind of people to get solution focused. I know, and again, part of it is my own propensity. You talked about it in Why You Write. I created this project because I knew it would allow me to kind of start to pull things apart, and that it would help. That it would help me just through the nature of creating this. But so being solution focused, but I think a lot of the time people think that there are these big things or these things that nobody's ever thought of that they need to do. But a couple of takeaways that I'm getting from you already is one, that meditation, how important that is and how much that can help us, and two, another thing that I know about you that you kind of just touched on then is exercise. And how exercise punches just way above its weight in terms of return that we get for output. So in a lot of ways, these things are simple. And I threw the revolution part in because I fully believe, and I can see through the work that you're doing, that if we all did this work, the world would pretty much change overnight.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. There are a lot of fairly fundamental basic practices that will make a profound difference on an individual level. And if you get, like mass numbers of individuals doing these things, then it starts to make a difference on a societal level. Yeah. And the thing is, so like when I write, there are a ton of other practices and strategies and ideas that I shared, in the last book, and they're all great and they all work. But, if people ask me, like, what are the one or two things that you can do that would make just a massive difference? I tell them, meditation and movement, there's no big, those are together the biggest force multipliers for, the change, shift in mindset on the planet. And a lot of people don't want to hear it. They're like, no, but what else can we do?
Exactly.
And you're like, no.
Yeah.
You know, it really is that simple. And
Yeah.
people are like, well, I don't have time. I'm like, actually, you do have time, because the research is very clear that when you do these things, you operate on a level of innovation, creativity, problem solving, and productivity that so far exceeds the level you operate on when you don't do them, that you will literally have time to do these things plus a bunch of additional free time to go and play.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a key takeaway for people watching. It's like, get over it. You have got time. You've got to create that space, and what opens up in front of that and what comes out of it can be huge.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason you don't have time now is because you're not doing it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it creates its own space.
Yeah. No, totally. So what? So one of the things I like to ask people, and you kind of just hit on it, but that, you know, what can people do? I think to leave people with that, it really is as simple as that. Don't overwhelm yourself, because that's the danger of leading into that state of paralysis. But just pick one or two things, or maybe even just pick one.
But pick one, actually.
Yeah.
You know, our brain does not allow us to adopt new habits sort of like at the same time. It's got to be sequential. If you try and do multiple things at once, you're going to fail at all. Then I can pretty much guarantee that.
Yeah.
Like the habit loop that to replace a habit loop, which means that you've got to like take an existing habit or routine and build a new habit on top of that that's stronger than the existing one, because there's actually no such thing as eliminating a habit. It can't be done.
Right.
We can only build neural processes that are stronger.
Right.
It's almost impossible for us to focus on doing that with multiple different routines and habits at the same time. So pick one, a single one, and spend a month or two just on that until it's really ingrained. And then, once you're comfortable with that, start to move to the next one.
Then start on something else. And I think, and a key part of this that I should throw in, and one of the things that I see people struggling with, and why they say they haven't got time, is that they're just going to overwhelm with distractions. So I would say, if you can add something, if there were two tasks. One was to add something, say meditation or exercise, and the other one I would say is get rid of something.
Yeah.
To kind of create that space. And I've been a big advocate of throwing away your TV for a long time, and it's funny, people used to laugh at that when I first started putting it out there, and I think that's kind of starting to gain some traction.
I think people are really starting to feel the effect of screen time on their state of mind.
Yeah.
Whether it's like computer screen time, and now because we're screen shifting everywhere we go, we're on a screen.
Yeah.
There's never any break anymore. Like you're at home, you're on your computer or on your TV. The moment you walk out the door, you're checking, like every social outlet on your smartphone. And then when you go to a restaurant or work, everywhere you go, there's a screen.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. I think, taking stuff away, you get the shakes a little bit in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because we literally develop an addiction. It's like classic intermittent reinforcement when you become a checker. And when when you try and pull one of those things out of the loop, it's hard, but it opens up a lot of spiritual and cognitive space when you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Addiction. That's a whole other track right right there. I think we'll leave that one for now. So people want to find out more about Jonathan Fields. I'm thinking probably jonathanfields.com.
Yeah, that's the best place. From there, that's sort of the hub, and you can find out about the books and projects and all sorts of other stuff just there.
Yeah, and for me, highly recommend Career Renegade. Like I said, whether you're looking for to get out of a career or looking for a new one, but tons of stuff in there. And Uncertainty, I loved, because again, it's basically more thoughts and kind of a bit of a map on creating out of uncertainty, which is something I'm pretty passionate about myself.
Cool.
So yeah, grab it, people. Alrighty, well, thank you, Jonathan, for sharing some time with us this morning, and I'm for one, I'm looking forward to seeing what you create next.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being on with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Cool. Thank you.